Hi, my name's Paula Storm, and today on my Handy Quilter Sweet 16 segment I wanted to show you how I quilt swirls. Now when I first started quilting swirls I had a huge amount of trouble because I just could not get them right. I had read somewhere that you should draw a 6, so have a long tail and then come into a 6 like that. And so I tried that, and then I would come back out and I'd come back around and then I'd stop. Oops, my pencil keeps breaking. And then I'd go into another one like that, and then I'd come around and I'd stop there, move along, and go into another one like this. The problem I had with that was that I was left with these big sections like here that were just not filled in, and I didn't like how uneven it looked. So I kind of stopped doing swirls for a long time because they just they drove me crazy. And then I found someone saying that you should try maybe a question mark sort of shape. So you start out with a curve going the opposite way and then come round to doing your 6 like this. And that was better, but again I was left with big sections that I just didn't like. And I just couldn't get it right. So I kind of gave up on swirls again for a bit longer. Until I sort of sat down one night with a piece of paper and a pencil and I really started playing. And then I found that for me, I found it easier because, as I've said to you in previous lessons, I am so used to a circle shape that I found it easier to not have that big long tail. And I found that I was able to fill up my sections a lot easier and a lot more fully by doing that circle shape. So I started out coming around and going into that circle and just cutting it off at the very end. So rather than continuing around here, I cut it off just at the end. And then I would come back around. And I would try and stay an equal distance between each line. So I'd continue back around like that. Once I get to the start, I'll kind of travel up a little bit and then go into another one. And again, just cutting off that circle right at the end. And that way I found I was much more consistent with my distances and spacing. So once I get all the way back around, I continue until I hit another line. And that's something I learnt from Angela Walters. She's like my favourite quilter on the planet. And in one of her craftsy classes, which I highly recommend, she suggested continuing until you hit a wall. So I've hit that wall. Now I can move up and go into another one, cutting off my circle right at the end and back around. Then I would travel and echo back around till I hit another wall. What I'm doing here with this echo is I'm trying to bring it down and around, and so it would look, if that spiral continued, it would look like it's going to meet up with that line there. Because when you're quilting, the eye kind of tricks you a lot of the time and it will complete circles. So if you can make it look like it's going to meet up with that line there, it will look much more consistent in your finished quilting. So once I hit that wall, I could either travel along here and echo back around, but that would make this swirl really big. So I'm not actually going to do that. What I'll do is I'll just travel up a little ways and I'll go into another swirl. Again, trying to make that circle shape and cutting it off right at the last second and back around. And again, trying to keep my distances as consistent as possible. And that's the first part of the swirl. Then we need to echo to complete that swirl down and around here. So also when I first started, as I was coming back around here, I would actually just veer off to try and finish that swirl earlier or quicker. And I found that it sort of blocks the eye. Instead of the line coming down and around here and meeting up with that section there, it was looking like it was leaving this big section that was just wrong. So once I started playing and I realized that I needed to continue that line no matter what, I needed to continue it in the same angle as that swirl, then you can see there it's sort of meeting up with that one here, and it's much more pleasing to the eye. So once I was finished there, I could just echo a little bit over there and come around and do my next swirl. Again, trying to keep the distance between each line as close as possible, and then echoing. Like that. Again, another little one in here. And with swirls, see how this one is really quite small compared to this one? I found if I just echo a few more times, just because I needed to fit it into that tiny section. And if I was working on a quilt here, I would actually travel down into the ditch and echo there. Up the ditch, back up the ditch up here, and continue. And I would continue adding echoes until this swirl appeared to be the same size as this swirl. And I find that that just consistency, it looks much nicer to the eye. So again, go back into my circle, back and around, and continue it all the way down. Back up and echo. And then I could travel up here. Oops, you can't see, sorry. Then I could travel up here, or I could travel out over here. So I might travel up here and round into that circle. Back and around all the way, making sure that I continue that line all the way. So here I would hit the ditch again. I would definitely bring that down and around so it appears to be meeting up there. And again, fill up that little section, bring it around so it appears to be the same size as this one here. With swirls too, I reverse the direction that I'm going in quite often. I find that I like the look of it to reverse the direction, but you don't have to, you can go the same way each time. But practice going in each and every single direction on your paper so that when you get to your quilt, you won't feel as stressed about filling in those little tiny sections. Again, see how I've got that big section down here? I would come down and finish off that part of the swirl, and then I would just travel back up and echo. Then I would travel along the ditch to fill in this one and go around. Now, seeing as I've got this big section here, I would actually, instead of continuing out and coming back and around, I would actually come back, finish that echo there, come back, finish that echo, and then come down and around. And then travel all the way back over here until I'm into a clear spot again. Again, I'm left with this big gap down here. I would travel along until that's filled up and then echo around. So there you go, that's how I draw swirls. In the next segment, I will show you how I quilt them.